It looks like Fortnite might be officially killing off the Save the World mode. Now, I can't lie, you guys, I'm kind of shocked this is where we've ended up with Save the World. I know that it's pretty clear over the last couple of years that Fortnite wants to phase it out. They don't really want people to play it, but I can't believe that it actually got to this point to where they actually might be removing it off of an entire console. Like, it won't be playable on the Nintendo Switch 2. As you guys probably know, Save the World was literally the foundation of Fortnite. Before Battle Royale, before Creative, it was all about PvE, zombies, kind of like a tower defense sort of game, and now it's been leaked that it won't even be playable on the Nintendo Switch 2. On Fortnite, it feels like they're trying to completely erase this mode, and to be honest with you guys, if they could kick every, diehard or whatever, avid fan of Save the World out of playing it or off of the game, I genuinely think that they would because of how they're, approaching the game at this point. Now, Save the World used to mean a lot to Fortnite. Before, it was known for, obviously the Battle Royale mode that was wildly popular, the emotes nowadays, the crossovers. It was this PvE survival game, and that game was Save the World. It launched as a paid title. It wasn't completely free. It had co-op missions, you built your base, there was crafting, loot systems, and a narrative-driven campaign. That was one of the things that I really liked about Save the World, was the amount of depth that it had. There were so many things to do, there were so many missions, there were full-blown cinematics, there were seasonal updates, and there was actually a long-term vision for Save the World, even in chapter 1 of Fortnite. Even though they were more focusing on Battle Royale, there was still a vision for what Save the World would become. Save the World was initially the backbone of Fortnite's entire universe. It was the original vision, not just a side mode. It wasn't about cosmetics or competition. Well, it was about cosmetics for a second with the loot llamas and everything, and then they got into a huge lawsuit with that and had to discontinue them, which could be one of the reasons why they're not focusing on this, because there's not much money to be made in it anymore. But anyways, it was about progression and had a really good replayable structure. There were so many weapons in the game. There was all types of content being made on it, even in chapter 1 of Fortnite, and I'm really surprised that they're treating it in this way. Now, the death of Save the World has been relatively slow in my opinion. It hasn't had a real meaningful update in years. It's basically kind of in maintenance mode with kind of the same sort of recycled stuff over and over again. What's wild is that even right now, with barely any attention that it gets from Epic Games, it still has a higher player count than a lot of these metaverse kind of filler modes, Lego Brick Life, definitely Rocket Racing, stuff like that Fortnite has put a lot of attention into and dedicated entire mini studios into. It has more players than those, which is really weird because I feel like Fortnite would want to lean into something like that, especially since I feel like that should be part of the metaverse modes. Epic keeps propping up these new experimental modes like Lego Fortnite and Rocket Racing, of course, but they never really circle back to actually support the modes that people are still playing. Save the World has a pretty solid fan base, and I know in comparison to, Battle Royale, Reload, things like that, there's not very many people, but people are still playing this game, and I'm really surprised that Fortnite hasn't leaned into that at all. So now we just got the big news yesterday. Of course, there was all of that information released about the Nintendo Switch 2. It came out yesterday, I believe. People are getting their pre-orders today. Save the World will not be supported on the Nintendo Switch 2. And when I heard that, I thought that was absolutely insane. Now, this is a system, mind you guys, that can run Cyberpunk. It runs games like Zelda. It'll run next generation Fortnite Battle Royale and all of the game modes just fine. And I don't think that this is a hardware issue. If it's able to run those games like Cyberpunk, Zelda, whatever, then it feels intentional. Epic doesn't want to bring Save the World forward, and that, is just kind of, I guess, the epicenter of, or the climax of what they've been doing with Save the World all these years after they completely ended support in 2020. Like I said, it's not like there aren't any updates at all for Save the World. They do still release things every now and then, but it's nothing monumental that actually changes the game or makes it really much more interesting, to be honest. Now, overall, you guys, especially now, it feels like Epic hates Save the World. It feels like Epic is hoping people just kind of forget about the game entirely. It gets no spotlight, has no real presence in trailers. No crossover items are added into Save the World. They've made it feel irrelevant on purpose. And this is another thing too, you guys. If you notice, when you go into the Discovery tab, and they may change this when they update the menu, I'm not sure. But when you go into the Discovery tab and you go to the stuff that was made by Epic, for a long time, I don't know if it's still this way, but for a long time, Save the World, no matter what what the player count was, it was always all the way at the back. And it seemed like Fortnite kind of organized it at one point based on like highest player count to lowest. And Save the World definitely didn't have the lowest at some points, but it was always at the very, very back or the very bottom of the made by Epic section, which I thought that was really interesting. It's weird because they're pushing the whole like metaverse idea so hard, and Save the World literally has more world building structure and you know, depth than anything else that they've made, in my opinion. Maybe Lego has a little bit more or the same, but there is so much content inside of Save the World, and I'm really surprised that they're treating it this way. Now, the people who still play Save the World, they're very, very loyal. They're frustrated. The updates are very stale. The bugs don't get fixed. I'm pretty sure there's still a lot of bugs in Save the World or inaccuracies that haven't been fixed, and now it's being phased out even more. I get why Battle Royale is the main focus. It makes way more money, but I don't think that means you completely abandon the original vision of your game. I think that especially with people playing this, it would be worth it for Fortnite to even release like an update every month, like a big update every single month. I think that would be fine, and I think people would be happy with that. Personally, I think Save the World deserves a lot more. Even just revamping it, maybe with Creative 2.0 or giving it a real farewell would be something. Right now, it's being completely ghosted. And I know a lot of people have said, who in the world is buying a Nintendo Switch 2 to play Save the World Fortnite? And it's like, I don't know, maybe people are, you know, who is that to say? But it's not necessarily about them just removing it. It's about what that means for the future of Save the World, and how this could mean that they're eventually just going to remove it entirely from the game once player counts start going down even more. Now, what exactly could Epic do instead if they really just don't want to continue supporting Save the World as it is right now? They could have Save the World fully rebuilt in UEFN, new missions, creator support, more monetization that isn't just, you know, those llama loot boxes that they're not allowed to do. I know a lot of people might say that that's kind of, you know, a bad thing for me to say, that they should add more monetization to it, but to be honest, that's what they're looking for. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why they're not supporting this right now, is because there's really not much money to be made outside of it being paid. And by the way, it was supposed to go free in like 2018. Like, Save the World was supposed to be free for everyone in 2018, and it just never happened. But another thing they could do is even just giving it a place in the launcher like Rocket Racing or Lego Fortnite, where people can actually discover it and see it again outside of Fortnite. Overall, I think Epic needs to stop pretending that this mode doesn't exist or never existed. There's a real audience here if they actually tried. And I understand there's a lot of PvE games that are kind of like Save the World that creators are making, but it's different when it's made by Epic Games. It's going to be higher quality, and especially with the state of UEFN right now, nothing is able to really be made that's as intricate as Save the World is right now. Now, overall, I don't expect Save the World to suddenly be Epic's priority again, or really even like top 15 on the things that they think about, but this whole like Switch 2 thing feels like the final nail in the coffin, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you guys play Save the World, and what do you think about Fortnite seemingly phasing Save the World out of Fortnite? Let me know. Drop a like on today's video. You watched all the way to the end. You must have enjoyed, so drop a like. Subscribe to the channel. I make videos like these every single day. Use code PROZEROYT to help support me even further, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.